So like I said, today is going to be a lot of review from last week to make sure that we're okay with the different pieces of solving that we worked on last week. Last week we worked on solving by taking the square root, and we also worked on solving by factoring. We're going to work on both of those things today. I think there's probably, 8, 9, 10 questions on here that we're just going to work together, and then you're going to have an opportunity then after that to get some practice on your own. And then get some of the practice work done that you didn't get done last week from Monday and Tuesday of last week when we did have those assignments. So the first one, solve by taking the square root. So the first one says negative 3n squared equals negative 279. So when we're solving by taking the square root, we talked about the first thing that needs to be done is we need to isolate the variable. So we need to get rid of any addition or subtraction that's done to the variable first, and then any multiplication that is done to it. So in this case, we've got negative 3 times n squared. So we have to get rid of that negative 3n squared by dividing both sides by negative 3. Negative 3n squared divided by negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. So that just leaves us with n squared. Negative 279 divided by 3. 93 is 93. Okay, now we got to take the square root of both sides. We got to get rid of the squaring. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. When we do that, the square root of n squared is n. Square root of 93, remember we put plus or minus, and we put the square root of 93. Now you punch 93 in your calculators, it's not a perfect square. So then we look to see if it can be broken down. Well, I know 3 goes into it. 3 goes into it 31 times. I don't think anything goes into 31. And both those are prime. So that's your solution. It doesn't break down. You're done. Okay, we don't put it as decimals. We don't do anything like that. We just leave it as is. Okay. Second one. Pretty much like the first one, we've got 3n squared equals 147. Okay, we're going to isolate. Divide both sides by. What am I going to do? Divide by 3. 3n squared divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so that's n squared equals 30, 40, 49. Take the square root of both sides. So square root of n squared is n. Square root of 49 is 7, but remember we're going to put plus or minus 7 because we're finding the value of n. And again, I'm just punching 49 in the calculator, hitting square root. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, put it in as a factor tree. If you don't have a calculator to know, 49 is 7 times 7. 7 has a partner. Okay. Next one, r squared plus 7 equals 109. What's first? Subtract 7. R squared plus 7 minus 7 is r squared. 109 minus 7, 102. Take the square root of both sides. Square root of r squared is r, plus or minus the square root of 102. 102 is not a perfect square. We're going to do factor tree. Two goes into it. 51 times. 51 is 3 times 17. 51 is 3 times 17. But that doesn't do us any good, does it? Don't have any buddies. No buddies, be done. Okay. Last one in this set. 8m squared minus 1 equals 63. We'll continue to do them together. What do I do first? Add 1. Remember, we get rid of any addition or subtraction to our variable first. So 8m squared minus 1 plus 1 is 8m squared. That's 64. Divide both sides by 8. M squared equals 8. Square root of both sides. So that's m equals, 8 isn't a perfect square, so plus or minus the square root of 8. Factor tree for 8, 2 times 4. 4 is 2 times 2. So 2 has a partner, so it's plus or minus 2. This 2 doesn't have a partner. It has to stay underneath. So plus or minus 2 radical 2. Okay. And we did these types of problems anytime you just had like the A value and the C value is when you would do these. Just had the A value and the C value. The second type then that we looked at was we looked at solving by factoring. So we've got, I don't know, about 6 of these that we're going to work on as well. Just going over all the aspects of factoring because it is so important. So the first one, 6x squared plus 6x equals 0. Now I can't stress enough, first thing in factoring, always take out a GCF. First part in factoring, always take out a GCF. So what's a GCF for 6x squared and 6x? 6x. So I can take a 6x out of each of those. If I take 6x squared divided by 6x, what's left? Just 1x, right? Plus 6x divided by 6x is 1. So that's going to equal 0. So now we use the zero product property. Zero product property said that if A times B equals 0, then A has to equal 0, B has to equal 0, or both A and B are 0. So we said both parts equal to 0. So 6x has to equal 0, or x plus 1 has to equal 0. So again, I'm just asking myself the question, 6 times what is 0? 0. So in this case, x equals 0. What plus 1 is 0? What's the opposite of 1? So there are my two solutions, 0 and negative 1. And a lot of these have two solutions. Right? Two terms looks like GCF if you've got the A and the B. Next one. 6x squared minus 6x minus 72 equals 0. First step, and one everybody's going to forget, always, not always, take out a GCF. GCF for 6 and 72. 6 going to 72? I think so. So we can take a 6 out. If I take a 6, x squared and divide it by 6, that leaves me with x squared minus 6x divided by 6 is just x. 72 divided by 6, 12. Okay, now that equals 0. Now I have to look. I've got this trinomial sitting here. Trinomial, 3 terms means try the x. 3 terms, try the x. A times c, negative 12. B is negative 1. So 1's a negative, 1's a positive. Multiply to 4 and multiply to 12 and add up to 1. Difference is 1. 4 and 3. Which one's negative? We're going to use the 4 and the 3. 4 is negative. 3 is positive. So factored form is this. But now we have to find the zeros. So I just look at the piece by piece. What makes that 0? Okay, so x minus 4 equals 0, so x equals 4. Or x plus 3 equals 0, x equals negative 3. Do we worry about that 6 right there? Don't worry about it because it doesn't have a variable with it. If it had a variable with it, we'd have to, but it doesn't. So we don't worry about it. Okay. Go ahead and do the next one. Try that one on your own. Is there a GCF? No. It's in standard form through trinomial. So 5 and 6. So 5 and 1. So again, it's a plus 5. We talked about this a little bit last week. A plus 1 equals 0. Remember we talked last week that said your answers are essentially the opposite of what's right there. So we've got 5 and negative. We've got 5 and 1, so our solutions are negative 5 and negative 1. And you're done. Okay. Guys, thank you. Next one. B squared plus 16 equals negative 8b. So because we have an a, b, and a c value, we have to put it in standard form first. So we have to get it equal to 0, that means. So that means I got to get the 8b, negative 8b, to the other side of the equation. So mathematically, that means I have to add 8b to both sides. Now I'm going to put it in standard form. Standard form, you take the exponents from largest to smallest. So we've got b squared plus 8b plus 16 equals 0. Now we've got it set up how we want to have it set up. So we've got 16 on the top, 8 on the bottom. Numbers are 4 and 4. So my solution is -4. Again, this would be b plus 4 times b plus 4 equals 0, or b plus 4 squared. The answer is just -4. Any questions with those so far? We've got 2 more that I want to look at, and you have an opportunity to review on your own. Next one, 5x squared minus 4x equals 1. And we'll do this one together. What do I do first? Subtract 1 from both sides because we got to get it in standard form. So that's 5x squared minus 4x minus 1 is equal to 0. Okay, trinomial means try the x. What goes on top this time? 5 or -5? -5. Remember, it's a times c. -4 on the bottom, but I'm going to divide by 5 because my a value is 5 there. It's negative on top, so one's a negative, one's a positive. Obviously, we're going to use 5 and 1. Which one's negative? 5 is negative, the 1 is positive. Oh, I didn't mean to erase that. That equals 1, so that's -1. So that factor is x minus 1. That factor, the denominator goes in front of your variable plus 1 equals 0, but it's not really what it's asking. It's just asking to find the zeros. So the opposite of -1 is 1. The opposite of 1/5 is -1/5. And I'm just looking at these right here to get these right here. You just have to remember that it's the opposites. That little button came in handy. All right, last one. Gonna let you try this one yourselves. All right, look up to make sure you got the first part right. And remember the first rule of factoring. GCF. What's the common factor? 4. So that leaves us with v squared minus 4v minus 5. trinomial means try the x. So negative 5, so negative and positive and negative 4. So negative 5, positive 1. That's our factors. So it's v minus 5, v plus 1 equals 0. So our solutions, 5 and negative 1. Okay. So that's what you're going to work on today. You're going to work on solving equations by taking the square root. Those are your first pieces. And then the second one, solving by factoring. Again, make sure that you check for those GCFs first. GCFs, GCFs, GCFs. And I know I don't say it sometimes, like on the 5x squared minus 4x plus minus 1. I didn't say GCF because my brain is looking at it and saying there isn't one. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. But I think you guys see that. Plenty of time to get it done. You've got about a half hour. Get it done.